The summer day was hot and sultry when I decided to visit my longtime friend Anna. We had been friends since college, and despite our different life paths, we always found time to keep in touch. On the way to her house, I immersed myself in memories of our carefree college days, filled with laughter and dreams about the future. When I arrived at Anna's house, she greeted me with a warm, welcoming smile. She looked as cheerful as ever. We hugged, and I felt the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filling the entire house, giving it a cozy and comforting atmosphere. We headed to the kitchen, and there I saw Jacob, Anna's son. I hadn't seen him for many years. He was no longer the shy teenager I remembered, but a confident and charismatic young man. He stood by the kitchen table, and his presence filled the room. We exchanged polite greetings, but in his gaze, I noticed something that intrigued and puzzled me. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't explain. An undeniable spark ignited between us. Anna and I spent the day reminiscing about old times and sharing news. However, despite our conversation, I couldn't shake the thought of Jacob. Every time he entered the room, the air became thick, laden with unspoken emotions. Anna and I were sitting in the kitchen, talking about our families and work when her phone rang. It was an urgent call from work. Anna apologized and said she had to leave for a few hours. Left alone with Jacob, I felt a slight thrill. Jacob suggested listening to some music in his room. Despite my nervousness, I agreed. His room was cozy and filled with posters of rock bands. He turned on some music and began showing me his musical compositions. I noticed he was wearing only shorts, and I couldn't help but admire his strong and muscular body. Excitement spread through my body, and I felt my nipples starting to show through my t-shirt. Jacob noticed this but tried not to look, although it was clear he liked the sight. Our conversation became more personal. We talked about his dreams, plans, and musical preferences. I felt the sensations of my college years returning: youth, excitement, and interest. Our eyes met, and I realized that something more was developing between us. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. This moment was full of energy and anticipation, and I knew our relationship would never be the same. Returning home after visiting Anna, I tried to get back to my normal life, but thoughts of Jacob kept coming back. His image, his music, his confidence, all of it stayed in my mind. Every morning, waking up next to my husband, I felt guilty, but I couldn't shake off the memories. One morning, I received a message from Jacob. He asked me to help him find an apartment. My heart skipped a beat for a moment. I knew agreeing to this meeting could be dangerous, but I couldn't resist the temptation. We agreed to meet at a cafe. At the cafe, Jacob looked relaxed and confident. We started talking about his preferences and requirements for a new apartment, but gradually the conversation became more personal. We talked about his life, his dreams and fears. "You know," Jacob said, leaning closer, "I've always admired your confidence. You were an example for me." I felt myself blushing. "Really? I would never have guessed." "Yes," he smiled, "and now you're just as beautiful as you were then, maybe even more so." My heart beat faster. "Thank you, Jacob. You've changed a lot too." "I hope for the better," he winked. "By the way, are you free this evening? Maybe we can check out a few apartments." I hesitated, but something inside me pulled towards him. "I think I can make some time." "Great," he said, his eyes gleaming with pleasure. "It will be interesting to spend some time together." Our eyes met, and I felt a warmth spreading inside me. Jacob's flirtation and hints excited me, and I realized I wanted to see where this would lead. Searching for an apartment for Jacob became my pretext for frequent meetings with him. Every time we inspected a new place, I felt the tension between us growing. One evening, we were looking at an especially cozy apartment that Jacob liked. "How do you like it here?" he asked, looking around the bedroom. "It's very cozy," I replied. "This mattress looks comfortable." "Let's test its firmness," Jacob suggested, winking at me. "Have a seat." I sat on the bed, feeling the mattress yield beneath me. Jacob sat next to me, his gaze piercing and playful. "You know," he said, looking into my eyes, "it's better not to sit on the bed you'll be sleeping in with the clothes you wore outside. Maybe you should take them off and we can fully test this bed for sleep." I felt myself blush at his words. "You're too confident for your own good, young man," I said, but I liked his boldness. "Maybe," he replied, moving closer. "But you like it, don't you?" He leaned in and gently kissed me. I felt my lips respond to his kiss. A conversation full of hints and flirtation ensued between us. "Are you sure you don't want to stay here tonight?" he asked, his voice low and seductive. I hesitated, but something inside me pulled towards him. "Yes, I think I can stay." We spent the night together. His young and strong body was like it was carved from marble. When he was on top, I could study him with my fingers, enjoying every muscle. I watched his silhouette move back and forth very dynamically, quickly and confidently, like a hammer on an anvil. In his arms, I felt alive and desired like never before, but inside me, a battle raged between guilt towards my husband and strong attraction to Jacob. Our meetings with Jacob became regular and secret. We met in various places, cozy cafes, secluded beaches, and apartments Jacob was considering renting. Every time we were together, I felt alive and desired like never before. One day, I came to Jacob's place without warning him in advance. His friend Michael, a tall and athletic guy with a friendly smile, opened the door. I was a bit embarrassed, but Michael quickly dispelled my doubts by inviting me to join them. "Hi, Elizabeth. Jacob has told me about you. We were going to spend the evening together. Why don't you join us?" Michael suggested. I felt a bit out of place, but Jacob supported the idea. "Come on, it will be fun," he said, smiling. "You don't mind, do you?" I smiled and agreed. The evening started with light conversations and music, but gradually the atmosphere became more relaxed and intimate. Jacob and Michael, both young and energetic, flirted with me, their glances and touches full of hints. "Have you ever thought about going back to the old days and just enjoying the moment?" Jacob asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I felt the excitement growing inside me. "Maybe," I replied, feeling my cheeks flush. Michael came closer to me. "You look stunning, Elizabeth. Why don't we relax and spend the evening the way you want?" I looked at both of them, and a desire flared up inside me. "All right," I said, feeling a wave of boldness wash over me. "Let's try." We spent the evening together, enjoying each other's company. Their warmth, their touches, and their passion filled me. I felt both of them, their bodies and their breaths. Their closeness, their movement inside me, all of it brought back sensations I had long forgotten. Feeling their warmth inside me simultaneously, I realized how thrilling and liberating it was. I felt alive, like in my youth, but at the same time, the feeling of guilt grew inside me. Every time I returned home, I felt my relationships with my husband and Anna deteriorating. My secret life with Jacob and now Michael began to erode my present. My life was full of emotions, secret meetings, and forbidden pleasures. But one morning, everything changed. I received a message from an unknown number. It was Jacob's girlfriend. "Hi, Elizabeth. I found out about your meetings with Jacob. At first, I found another woman's underwear in his apartment. Then, I found your chat. You were saved as Mom's friend Elizabeth. At first, I didn't give it much thought until I saw intimate photos. I realized that Jacob is cheating on me with you." I felt the blood drain from my face. In a panic, I drove to Anna's house to sort everything out. Inside, I was boiling with fear and shame. When I arrived, Anna greeted me with surprise. "Elizabeth, what's wrong?" "I need to talk to Jacob," I said, my voice trembling. "It's urgent." Anna led me to the living room where Jacob was sitting. His face was pale and he looked distressed. I immediately knew he was aware of the situation. "Jacob, why did you tell her everything?" I asked, unable to contain my emotions. He sighed. "Elizabeth, I can't lie anymore. She found your underwear at my apartment and then the chat. I didn't want her to find out, but hiding the truth became impossible. I told her everything." My heart ached with pain and shame. "But now everyone knows," I said, feeling tears welling up in my eyes. "I'm sorry, Elizabeth," Jacob replied. "I really didn't want it to happen this way, but now it's all out in the open." Anna stood nearby, not saying a word, but her eyes spoke volumes. I knew that my friendship with Anna was now ruined, as was my life. This was a revelation from which there was no escape. Anna stood there, not saying a word, but her eyes expressed a storm of emotions. She quickly realized what was happening. "Anna, I'm sorry," I began, feeling my cheeks flush. "What are you doing with my son, Elizabeth?" Her voice trembled with anger and disappointment. "Anna, It was a mistake. I didn't want it to happen this way." I tried to explain, but my words sounded hollow. "Mistake? You're having fun with my son, Elizabeth. You're over 35. You should have known better," Anna said, her voice full of disbelief. "How could you? You were my best friend." Jacob stepped between us, trying to calm his mother. "Mom, forgive me. This is all my fault. I didn't want to hurt you." "Leave, Jacob," Anna whispered, not looking at him. "I can't see you anymore." Jacob looked at me with pain and regret. "Elizabeth, I'm sorry," he said before leaving the house. I stood there in front of Anna, feeling my life crumble. "Anna, I need to go," I mumbled, knowing there were no words that could fix what had happened. Anna turned away, not wanting to see me anymore. I knew our friendship was over. My entire life seemed shattered. Returning home, I felt empty and broken. I knew I had to confess to my husband. It was the only way to start making things right. When he came home, I gathered all my courage. "We need to talk," I said, and I saw the worry in his eyes. "About what?" he asked, his voice calm, but I sensed the anxiety beneath the surface. I had an affair," I confessed, unable to hide my tension. "With Jacob, Anna's son." He was silent, his face pale. I saw the pain and disappointment in his eyes. "Why?" he only asked, his voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I got lost. I'm sorry." He stood up and left the room without saying another word. I knew our future was now in jeopardy. My secret life had destroyed everything I loved. A week later, he approached me, his face serious. "I've filed for divorce," he said quietly. "I can't live with this anymore." I nodded, understanding it was inevitable. "I'm sorry," was all I could say. Those words felt empty. He nodded and left. I was left alone, realizing the consequences of my actions. Loss, loneliness, and guilt filled every corner of my mind. I tried to understand why everything had happened the way it did, but I found no answers. That evening, Michael texted me. He asked how I was feeling and suggested meeting up. At that moment, it seemed like his company might bring some solace. I agreed. We met in the park, walking among the trees and talking. Michael was attentive and supportive. His company distracted me from the pain and guilt that haunted me. "Do you want to come over to my place?" he suggested after our walk. I hesitated but eventually agreed. We went to his place and I felt a wave of confusion and relief simultaneously. Michael was attentive and kind, and I found solace in his company. After the divorce, I felt like my life had collapsed. I was left alone, surrounded by my mistakes and losses. The first few weeks passed in a state of numbness. I didn't know how to move forward and felt lost. However, one morning I realized that I couldn't continue living like this. I needed to change something. I decided to start therapy. Finding a good therapist, I began regular sessions where I could openly talk about my feelings and actions. My therapist helped me understand myself, the reasons that led to my mistakes. We worked together on my self-awareness and inner world. Alongside therapy, I decided to focus on my work. I'm a realtor, and helping people find their homes always brought me satisfaction. I started actively engaging in finding perfect homes for my clients, putting all my energy into it. Work helped me distract from my own problems and find redemption in helping others. Gradually, I began to rebuild my life and self-esteem. I learned to forgive myself for my mistakes and accept them as part of my experience. As time passed, I felt confidence and strength growing inside me. One day, looking back on the path I had taken, I realized that I had become stronger. My mistakes taught me to value honesty and fidelity. I learned to appreciate myself and my feelings, and I understood that every day is an opportunity for a new beginning. Several months had passed since my life had drastically changed. I often reflected on my past, on the decisions and mistakes that led me to this moment. Therapy helped me understand that every action has its reasons, and every experience carries a lesson. Sitting in a cozy cafe, I recalled those days when my heart was filled with turmoil and pain. I realized how important honesty and fidelity are in relationships. Lies and infidelity had destroyed not only my marriage, but also my friendship with Anna. These lessons were hard but necessary. I started a new life, stronger and wiser than before. Every day I strive to be the best version of myself, not only for me, but also for those around me. I found solace in my work and in new relationships based on honesty and mutual respect. Every morning I woke up with the understanding that each day is a new opportunity to be better and to love more sincerely. I no longer sought solace in fleeting pleasures. Instead, I sought deep, meaningful connections that could enrich my life and the lives of those I loved. I was no longer afraid of my mistakes. They became part of my journey, my growth, and my understanding of myself. Now I knew that I could love and be loved without betraying my values and principles. In the end, I found my way to happiness and harmony. My new life was full of hope and possibilities, and I was ready to face the future with an open heart and a clear mind. Every day was a chance to start anew, to love sincerely, and to live wholeheartedly.